Welcome to this second webinar about education for sustainable development, organized by the OMEP's ESD working group, led by our colleagues Ingrid Pramlin Samuelson, Ingrid Engdahl, and Adriana Wisnik-Jebnik. The Transforming Education Summit, convened in September 2022, and the Tashkent Declaration and commitments of the recent World Conference on Early Childhood Care and Education have become an agreed global framework to put education, including early childhood education, in the political, economic agenda in terms of equity and inclusion, quality, and relevance as a fundamental human right. One of the OMEP's initiatives to fulfill its commitment as part of the civil society is the 2023 seminar series, which is an opportunity to create a space for the exchange of ideas and generate knowledge to develop quality ECC. Why is OMEP involved in this flagship project? ESD gives learners of all ages the knowledge, skills, values, and agency to address interconnected global challenges, including climate change, loss of biodiversity, unsustainable use of resources, and social, cultural, and economic inequalities. It empowers learners of all ages to make informed decisions and take individual and collective action to change society and care for the planet, and also to develop their own citizenship. ESD is a lifelong learning process and an integral part of quality education. It enhances the cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral dimensions of learning and encompasses learning content and outcomes, pedagogy, and the learning environment itself. UNESCO is the United Nations leading agency of ESD and is responsible for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, Education 2030 Agenda. And of course, has worked in the United Nations Decades of Education for Sustainable Development through 2005 to 2014, and the Global Action Plan, the GAP, from 2015 to 2019. As you may know, OMEP has been accompanying and supporting all these processes near 15 years. OMEP work on ECC focus on empowering and mobilizing educators and researchers on this issue, building capacities of educators and ECC centers, and advocating and accelerating country public policies and local level action. So last Monday, we had our first webinar on OMEP, of the OMEP seminar series of this year, where two awarded projects from the ESD 2022 competition were presented. If you missed this activity and you want to revisit some of the ideas, you can watch the video on the OMEP World TV YouTube channel. Today, we have this second seminar to continue inspiring and supporting applicants for the ESD award and student award, and can be submitted this year through April 15. You can see all the information regarding the call for 2023 on the OMEP World website. This year, we will be focused on play, and to encourage your participation, Professor Niklas Pramlin from the University of Göteborg will introduce this important topic and lead an enriching discussion with questions and answers. We are very grateful for his commitment and collaboration. Thank you, Niklas. And the session will be moderated by Ingrid Engdahl for OMEP Sweden and former OMEP Vice President for the European regions. Thank you, Ingrid, for your participation and your permanent commitment. This webinar would be also possible, would not be possible without the work of Camila Hirsch, work assistant, and Carlos Paez Vivanco, Secretary of OMEP Argentina, who are providing technical, administrative, and communicational assistance and support. Thank you to both. I hope you enjoyed this session and have a nice day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mercedes, our world president. Thank you for these nice, good words. And welcome to the session, the webinar, when we're going a bit deeper into the 2023 year's award applications. I welcome all of you, and my name is Ingrid Engdahl. I am active in OMEP Sweden, and as Mercedes said, I'm also active since many years in this ESD approach. Well, let's see. I would like to share PowerPoint with you. Share. To walk us through some of the things Mercedes mentioned and some new things maybe. Now we go. Here we go. Mercedes, you mentioned the link to the UNESCO or world commitment on education for sustainability and changing the world for a more sustainable future. And we usually attach goal number 4, quality education, to our work, but it must be said that all the 17 SDGs are relevant for early childhood and early childhood education. But most of the things we have been doing in OMEP has been linked to quality education. And it was a success that the lobbying for early childhood made UN enter the target 4.2, which for the first time ever said that all children have the right to early childhood education. And we also use target 4.2 very often, which is about education for sustainable development, about global and local, about citizenship and values. This award that we deliver has been in place since 2010. The first time was in the World OMEP Congress in Gothenburg in 2010, and it is a success. It is the largest award system for early childhood education in the world, and we're very proud with these numbers that you can see here that we reach hundreds and thousands of children, and these are the ones who have applied for the award. There are many more teachers around the world working with education for sustainability that don't finish by sending in the award, but you see all the numbers here. I would also like to recognize the leadership group. Mercedes mentioned Ingrid Framing-Samos and Adriana and myself, but we are more international. We have Glyn Mackey from New Zealand, Yunhei Park, Korea, Selma Simonstein from Chile, Petra Wistrolcicova, sorry Petra, from the Czech Republic, and Judith Wagner from the United States. And you can see these are people with long experience and tradition of working for and in OMEP. The project, ESD World Project of OMEP started in 2009 and was manifested in 2010. And since then we have continued with 8 more parts of the project, you could say, where we look at children's voices, which was the first one linked to this drawing by Anna-Karin Engberg. But we've also looked at projects in practice, ESD projects in practice. We've looked at different goals to reach, to come closer to the sustainable development goals. We have had more projects, and we've also turned towards teachers and worked with teacher competence and development of teacher practices. And we've achieved together during the gap years, 2015 to 2019, we started a resource bank hosted by UNESCO and OMEP on ESD projects. We have developed a OMEP ESD rating scale, which is a good tool for starting a quality assessment. How far is my setting? How far is my preschool in the work for sustainability? And we have this award. So there are lots of things that you can look into at the OMEP website or read about in the OMEP journals. The competition criteria has always been that it should be projects where you work directly with children, and we use the international definition of early childhood from birth to age 8, and preference for until age 6. And the proposals should be recent, something that you've done the last few years, and should be almost finished by the time you apply for the award. And the activities should link to one or more components of sustainability: healthy environments, viable economies, and equitable, just, and peaceful societies. So actually you can come up with or apply for any of the projects you do in your early childhood setting linked to sustainability. This year, we have another additional criteria where we want to link education for sustainability with the fundamental role of play and communication in early childhood education. And this could strengthen the part of the project which helps us to see what the children are doing, what they are saying, what they are expressing. And it could be an interest for others in the field if they could see that in play you can work with play, learning, sustainability integrated. To put forward this approach a bit more, we asked 2 scholars at the University of Gothenburg, Niklas Pramling and Cecilia Wallerstedt, to do 2 recordings about this perspective called Play, Responsive Teaching and Learning. And you can see them, and maybe you've already watched them before this webinar. That's what we asked you to do, but it's still possible to watch them and discuss with colleagues and with students at the university. What is play responsive theory, and how could you work with this theory as a preschool teacher? There's also a book presenting this if you want to read more about it. And in this book, it's the theory itself and the background to the theory, but also a number of case studies that is active in this theoretical perspective. And just to make sure that you don't miss this part, which is really important today, that we are happy that we have announced the 14th Annual Education for Sustainable Development Award competition. And it's the 5th year that we turn directly to students too. So after a couple of years, we realized that it was not a fair competition between students and teachers. So we have 2 awards, and we really hope to get more student applications and many teacher applications. The deadline is April 15, and you see the links here. And if you want, you should apply in a special format, and this column format is on the OMEP website, as you can see here. Now it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Professor Niklas Pramling. He is one leader of the research group at the University of Gothenburg, where this whole theory of play responsive education in early childhood is developed and done. And you and your colleague Cecilia have been very helpful doing the videos for us. And now I invite you, Niklas, to take the floor and give a short introduction about this.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Oh,
so
just one more thing. Sorry, Niklas, that's not polite to give you the floor and then take it back. If you want to, if you have comments, questions, anything, use the chat function and put your questions there, and we will take them up. Ingrid Traunding is helping us to read what you are saying. And after the introduction from Niklas, there will be some questions and answers from you or from me. And I hope we will have a good discussion about the important role of play and the important role of responsiveness from teachers in early childhood education and learning. So use the chat, please. And now I will be quiet. I give it to you, Niklas.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen there. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I will just, since there are these two films that you can watch about this theory and how to work with it, I will just add a few words about play and sustainability from this perspective, and some things I think are very important about this relationship. So these are just some minor additions to those presentations. So one question, of course, which is very basic for sustainability work, is how do we create good conditions for the future, or create a good future? And something to emphasize there for early childhood education, among many other things, is that it's very important to nurture and develop children's abilities to imagine and fantasize. And I will talk a bit about that, why that is important and how you could support that. It's also very important to early in life experience and learn how to think differently, that things can be understood in different ways. There are not just one way of understanding the world. And also being able to ask different kinds of questions, change perspectives, ask other kinds of questions. And of course, learning to understand different points of view and how these could be coordinated. And this is something that children work with when they establish play together and when they play together. Because often they have different ideas of what to play and how to play that play and so on. And this is something that they communicate about. So they often meta-communicate. They communicate about their play and how they should play and what roles there are and so on. That's a very important kind of socialization into these democratic forms of communication, where different perspectives are raised and people try to consider each other's point of view and make something common from that, rather than, okay, we want different things, then you do your thing and I do my thing. How can we make something together from these different points of view? And that is very central to establishing and being able to play together. When I say about the importance of understanding how things could be differently, there is this thought figure that we call what if. And this is a kind of a forward directed kind of thinking. And there are different forms this could take. For example, what if it was me? And this is kind of a way of working with empathy, understanding situation for other people. What if it was me and my family that had to live through this conflict or this event? Or what if it was the other way around? This is kind of basic form of critical thinking. Well, does it have to be in that way? What if it were like this instead? Or what if what I take for granted is unknown to others? So this is a way of kind of making each other aware of what we take for granted, what lies in our perspective that we don't see ourselves. We only see this when we come in contact with another perspective. Or what if what others take for granted is unknown to me? And this is also very important from a developmental point of view, to realize that you do not know certain things. and that you can actually, how can you actually do to find out? And this is kind of the issue of becoming aware of the importance of learning. And then what I already spoke about a bit, what if instead of so and so it were like this? So this is kind of a way of engaging in this kind of imaginary thinking, that what if we change the premises or the assumptions or what we take for granted? If we change those, what follows then? So these are kind of ways of engaging in how things could be different and thinking in other ways than just learning facts, how the world is and what we know, so to speak. And these could all be done with children in play activities and so on. You imagine things and you develop stories and so on. And that's very important, because this relates to the issue of why fantasy and imagination are so important also to sustainability, because if you can imagine how something could be differently, what if it were like that instead, then you can communicate with others about this, and you can also work towards realizing, making real those ideas. So for example, if we imagine, what if the world were like this, then what would we have to do to get there? What would that mean for this and that and so on? So it kind of actualizes many things that follow. It's a way of setting thought in motion. What happens if we change something? And that's very different from learning about the world as a kind of set of established facts, which is also important, but it's another mode of making knowledge. And something that is, of course, excellent to nurture in early childhood education is to learning to play and fantasize and imagine. And I would emphasize that it's important also that we don't naturalize play, that we don't suppose that everyone can play and can play together, because how to enter play and how to contribute to play as a participant is something that both children and the personnel in early childhood education may have to develop. It's not easy for everyone to do, and there are different strategies that children use to become participants in play, and that is something they could develop with the assistance of others. So that's also very important, that everyone can become a participant and are partners in play. So people don't get excluded from these kind of activities. It's also very important to develop fantasy, as I said, and this is the idea that you can imagine what could happen or how it could be instead. And this is something that we nurture very much through narrative, and much play is narrative play. You play some kind of adventure or something. And then you always have these questions, what happens next and what happened then and so on. And those are very easy, those are very basic kind of ways of engaging people in thinking ahead, what will happen then. So it's a kind of forward directed mode of thinking. But there is also this in narrative, for example, why was it like that? How did we end up here? And these are both very important ways of thinking, but they're very different from each other. You could say that what happened then, or how could it be instead, is a kind of forward thinking way of engaging in something. You think ahead, but why was it like that is more of a reflection. You think back on what has happened, what has taken us here, and what lessons have we learned from our experiences. And these are two very different and very important ways of thinking, to learn from the past, but also to be able to think about a different future. And if you can think about that different future, what then would we have to do to achieve that future? Something that also we often talk about, and we do that in these films you can watch also, it's about the freedom of play, and that is of course important. That's a very important ideal, that play should be free. But we often emphasize this idea from, or this distinction from, Bert van Oers. And he makes the difference between play being free from adults' participation, or whether participants are free to take activities in unforeseeable directions, and that's the freedom too. And that's what we emphasize here, that the critical freedom in play is that it is not given where you will end up. We don't have a fixed end point. It's open, it's evolving, it's responsive, where we take this activity. And of course, that openness can be with and without adults participating. So it's a very important freedom, but it's not freedom from the adults, because the adults are very important contributors potentially to play and play members. And we also have to be mindful of the fact that play is not free in the sense that it presumes nothing. I mean, it always takes something to participate in an activity, and to be able to play together, you need some kind of experience and some knowledge. And you could take these examples. For example, if some children wants to play a popular movie they have seen, and other children in a group haven't seen that movie, it's very difficult to become a participant. Because you don't know what roles there are in the story, you don't know what these different characters do, what kind of characters they are, and so on. You don't know the narrative. So you need certain experience to be able to participate in an activity. And that is, of course, very important then, to make sure all children get the kind of experiences they need to be able to participate in these mutual activities. And also this experience or knowledge about different parts of society. And for example, what is a farm? If we are playing farm, do all children know what a farm is, and what do you do there, and what do you have there, and so on? So that is also something we can always think about any activity in terms of participation and membership. What does it take to be able to participate in this activity? What does it presume familiarity with? So that was just a few words I wanted to say in addition to the films. And then I want to show some resources that you can look into. And Ingrid mentioned this first one, the monography. But there are also some more recent ones. And for example, this second one called Triggering in Play, that is a study about how you could promote children to expand a narrative, think ahead, and what could happen then, and so on. So it's this kind of building a narrative together. Then there is one recent study that concerns children's rights to play and children's rights in play in relation to the UNCRC. And finally, there is a text about play responsivity in relation to the youngest children in preschool. And how can that look? What could that mean with very young children? So these are some texts that you could access full text through these links, or if you Google these titles. So that was all I wanted to say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas. I've got a problem because I have a very small screen. Maybe I can see it now. It's like it's my screen is locked. But thank you, Niklas. It's so important to realize how play and learning are integrated, how play, learning, and quality are integrated, and then play, learning, quality, and sustainability are integrated in the early years. And I think you put up that really good. And I personally get access to this theory just by these words, thinking, what is this about? And what if? And that is also two perspectives that could be guiding us in our projects for sustainability. What is it about? What if we could get children into playing and learning around this topic?
Mm.
I think we have got one question. Sorry, Niklas, do you want to comment?
No, I just said I just agreed. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. I saw.
That's one question. What
Yeah.
to do with preschool teachers' education and study program that doesn't support transformative way of teaching and learning, build strong foundation in social and emotional skills, but are needed for sustainable education, This is my biggest concern. Participation, presume agency and freedom to think differently, I think I should say.
Oh, thank you for the question. It's about what to do if you are teaching in a setting or in a school or in a system that's very prescriptive. Whereas the whole idea by leaning on play is to open up for fantasy, creativity. And this is because we need new solutions. We need to find transactive ways, changing ways, and we need to transform the everyday life in preschool, in settings, in society, in families. And I would say it takes some courage to start a discussion among colleagues that we need to change. We have the SDGs. Probably your country has signed up for the SDGs, and the SDGs promote change. They lean on changing the way we have been doing things for the last decades. Niklas, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I can just say, I mean, it depends a bit on what level, so to speak, this resistance is. I mean, if it's from the leaders and so on, it takes certain kind of work to make this argument, of course. And like Ingrid said, that referring to these goals and the commitment to those and so. But if it's in the more working group, then there is this kind of practice near research that show the importance of working group or the working team collaborating on how to develop their work. So, for example, a very common strategy is that someone engages in an activity with the children and someone else in the working team films that interaction for some time, and then the working team watch that film together and discuss it and see what happens here. Why did it go like it did? What can we develop here? How could we have done this differently, or how could we do this differently the next time? So that is also a way of accessing perhaps different perspectives in the work team and discuss those and what those mean and how you could respond to those differences rather than just having one way of doing it. That may be frustrating for some, as they see is as contrary to what they have to do, so to speak.
Is a comment from Adriana. Would you like to say something? You may have the floor if you open your mic.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Niklas for stressing the role of adults or teachers in the free play, because sometimes there is a thought that if adult is part of play, it is not a free play. So maybe you can make distinction or say us more about the difference between didactic and free play, and whether but thank you for setting us role to play with children, not just to observe.
Thank you. The screen got stuck a bit there, so I didn't hear it. Did you ask me a question?
Well, it's about complementing that. It's about complementing that you stress the role of adults in play, and the difference between free play as free from adults compared to free play as free in the outcome. Anything can happen in play. If you could say a bit more about the didactics, the role of the teacher in what some people call free play, and mean free from adults.
Yeah, I mean, something very important that teachers or adults, this could also be in the home or in other settings, of course, as contributors, is that they have experience as cultural agents, if you will. So they, for example, if there is, if the children are playing something and some children are excluded, or some children get very boring roles, for example, being the dog which is sleeping in the outhouse or whatever, then the adult or the teacher can contribute with new roles that are related to this play, so that all children could be included and get these enjoyable developmental roles. And it's also possible for the adult being more experienced to see how different kinds of cultural resources, and that could be concepts or cultural practices that could be actualized in this play. For example, if they play shop, to perhaps introduce receipt, money, advertising of products, how you ship products, how you have to keep some food cold, and so on. You could introduce many relevant things to this play. And that contributes to also learning this more kind of didactical kind of approach without transforming the play into something else, because these kind of resources will be functional in driving the play forward rather than a distraction from it. So that's very important, where adults could contribute with having more experience than the children about different things.
Yeah, thank you. So it's like play is the original and most chosen arena for children. And if we want to promote learning and with children, we need to communicate in that arena, the play arena. But could you say something about what could play specifically bring to education for sustainability? Is there a certain link that is really important when we want to reach for sustainable development?
Yeah, well, I think that some things are these issues of being able to imagine how it could be differently. So you can go from how the world is to how it could be or how it can be. And that is one thing. And another thing, it concerns this kind of interrelationships between people, how we could we come in contact with when playing with children, come in contact with different perspectives, and how they coordinate that, learn to coordinate that into a mutual activity is very important. Also for sustainability, because sustainability always actualizes different points of view and different wants and so on. And just to understand that there are different perspectives and understand these, and how you could try to relate these, find something common despite these differences, I think is also very important in play. So I think the imagination part, this kind of thinking how it's engaging in the possible rather than the existing, in a sense, is very important, because if you only look at how it is, it's very difficult to change something. You have to have some kind of direction marker or some kind of ideal where what do you want to accomplish, and that means imagining something that is different from how it is now. So I think this imagination is kind of the key relationship between play and sustainability work. Yeah.
And that is also.
That's also Mr. Hand, I see.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the end of the decade in Nagoya in 2014, that the Minister of Education from Ghana was just talking about this, saying we will never get a sustainable future if we can't imagine what it is. We have to begin to imagine what it should be like if we get a sustainable world. But I also want to emphasize what Niklas was saying before about filming. I mean, with the technology today, it's so easy to use an iPad and put it somewhere and record what you're doing. Or you can record it on your telephone, only the sounds, what people are saying. Because if we think of what Ingrid was presenting, the very first task within ESD in OMEP was about that picture when children were cleaning the globe. And you could see how teachers were so surprised how much the idea children had and what they knew about it. So, I mean, there is no stronger tool to learn about your own everyday life and children's world than recording it and thinking about it, analyzing and discussing it, whether it's on film or it is in sound.
And I can just add something to what we talked about, and I agree with that, but just add something to what I said before, and that is also that I emphasized here the importance of imagination, to imagine something in order to realize it, but there is also the opposite relationship, actually, that in order to develop play, we have to know and develop some knowledge. There was a very interesting example of this in someone communicated in a book that Ingrid and another colleague edited, and they spoke about in their children's group, the children were very interested in gorillas, I think it was, and they'd like to play gorillas, but all they knew about gorillas was what they ate and how they sounded. So the play could not really develop. And then what they did was that they looked up a lot of things about gorillas together, the teachers and the children, and that meant that they could develop this gorilla play and expand it much more. So this goes in both directions. You could imagine something, you can, through playing, you can learn and achieve change in the real world, but also real world knowledge can also develop your play. So it's not a one-way direction.
Of course,
and
it's
that
a bit
also relates back to the question about the didactics and play.
Yeah, and I'd like to add how you look upon knowledge and how you look upon the role of education. Because if you look at knowledge, education as the institution where you should get to know how it is, we know so much. We have research. We have lived for thousands of years, and we have language, and we have names for everything. So we know, and the adult role or the teacher role could be just to pass this on. But that's not what is needed for the future. What's needed for the future is what you have stressed so well, Niklas, that you need to think about what's possible, think ahead, think what could be done differently. And you need to foster this approach already from the start. You can't say that first you tell children that everything is fine and the world is in order and so on. And then later on, when at age 12 or 18 or something, you should ask them to think freely about this. So the whole idea about combining play, learning, and education for sustainability is to stress this aspect that you should tell children there are things we can't go on doing. We can't do it like this anymore. And, you know, the people who come up with this system, they are the decision makers today. We need to find new ways. And you are great. You have fantasy. You have imagination. What could we do? And this kind of approach is maybe hard in some settings, in some cultures, but it's a sort of fostering of a mind that could think, how could we solve this? What could be differently? How can we come up with transformation of our everyday lives? And that is the whole idea why we in the group wanted to add this aspect of play to the awards this year. That please tell us how you work with children, with play, and the ideas children came up with during the projects.
Yeah. And I think that just asking these kinds of questions to children, that they hear the kind of questions that how could that be differently, for example, not just what is that and how is that and so on, to also early in life experience these kind of questions as natural to ask. You don't just pose questions about what is known, but also in a sense about what is unknown. And I think that's important that it becomes natural to ask that kind of questions also.
And then we're back into your question, Adriana. Then you need to be close to the children. You need to know their play, maybe being part of the play, at least so close so that you could add things. Sorry. So that you could add things that sort of makes the play go on. and turns the play in an alternative way or so. And so that is the mutuality, the interconnectedness. Being a skilled teacher is being close to the children's perspective so that you can add and challenge them.
And there's another aspect connecting to what you're saying there, and that is also this when adults participate in play with children, and that is something that we have seen, that this relates to the issue that was mentioned before here about agency, that we can see that in play, the children also experience that they can say no to the contributions also of their teacher. That could be very difficult to do in many other situations in education, but we see that in play they do that because the teacher is just one participant among the other participants. And sometimes the children give suggestions for how to develop a play, and sometimes the teacher does it, but it's not the case that the children naturally follows the teacher's suggestion. And they are often very skilled at negotiating and explaining why they don't follow that lead and instead go in another direction. And that is also very important for sustainability, that children very early in life in play experience that they have the right to also say no to authorities and to say that, no, we want to do it differently, and learning to argue that case or say that without hurting someone and so on, which is an important person to them. So it's a very important socialization that they become agents of these activities they participate in. They are not reduced to receivers of instruction, but they are agents in their own development.
And even young children communicate these things. And we use verbal communication, but all the non-verbal forms of communication are also important. And at the utmost result of this is that when children don't like the ideas of teachers, they leave the play. The play ends, they go away, they start playing somewhere else. They don't accept the suggestions from the teachers. And maybe sometimes you interpret this as they can't concentrate. They couldn't keep playing more than 10 minutes instead of looking at yourself and the way you interrupted their ideas in play. So it's a tricky thing to balance the initiative from the teacher with the ongoing play and the initiative from children. Ingrid, you have raised your own hand.
I'm right there at this time. I'm thinking about what I think is also important. I mean, it's a challenge by itself to talking about that teachers should go into children's play, because tradition over the world, they haven't been doing that very much. But I will even add another thing which you used to say, Niklas, and that is that this kind of communication and interaction with children could be at the lunch table. It could be when you are in the forest. It's not a question of just going into children's role play. You could use this kind of communication in any situation with children.
Yes, so precisely. And the basic point is to be responsive to play when it comes into play, so to speak. So it doesn't have to start in a play activity. It can start anywhere at any time. But how do you respond to the contributions that children give of different kinds, and how do you establish that into some kind of mutual activity? So yes, so it's important that you don't have to start in an established place, so to speak. This could be anywhere, anytime.
So there's nothing new in listening to children. It's a thing that Loris Malaguzzi said, for instance, listening to children. But then we add the responsiveness. Listening is not enough. The right to participation, the children's right to participation and decision-making in their lives means that if they give us something, tell us something, or show something, we need to respond to them. And we need to try to negotiate the joint meaning. And this is sort of scale of participation, child participation in early childhood education. And all of this could be at the core for education for sustainability, because in play, children think, or they may have a high level of influence. They like to think that they decide everything in the play. And of course, there will be children playing on their own. That's not what you are saying, that children shouldn't play on their own, but they are under the, it's under the umbrella of adult guidance or adult responsibility. And the play responsive teaching, the responsive part in that naming of your theory is really important, and it could be developed in many different ways. Okay, what about questions?
And I also think I agree, and I think it's also important to emphasize that responsivity doesn't mean that you follow any suggestion, because, like you say, it's always a negotiation among participants. What suggestions do we follow, and how does the activity develop? But the important thing is that you give some kind of response, so not necessarily, okay, I will do whatever you suggest, because this is always a matter of negotiation among the participants.
Mm. Oh, thank you. Welcome, Natalia. I'm so happy to see your face. Natalia Rishova, who's been doing the leadership of all these projects in Russia and is now in a difficult position, I think. Happy to see you. Do we have anything in the chat, Ingrid?
No.
Then we could maybe start summing up. Adriana, would you like to say something?
No, I think that you basically told everything. I would just like to advertise to join us, to find more about ESD awards, to, as a teachers, rethink about your roles in children's play and about a role of a play in education for sustainable development. So I see that Camilla was put links for the award into the chat. So yes, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, webpage, and everything, so you can find relevant information. And it was really nice to hear about teachers' role. I'm somehow always struggling because teachers are sometimes refusing to join the play, because then it is not a free play. So it was very much needed that someone say that aloud, that you can join to children's play and it is still free play and you can have your own position in it. Thank you, Niklas. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you both, Ingrid.
Can I just say one thing? I mean,
Absolutely.
We have people here who may be people who will send in the applications. And I mean, thinking about writing the application could be about any kind of topic. And what we are talking about now could just be an example of something happened during lunchtime or something, how this took place, or you have observed something about children. So it doesn't mean that the whole application must be like this. I think it's important to say that this is a part of the project you are working on that should be visible in one way or another in the application.
Okay. Niklas, would you like to say a final word before I finish off a bit about the award?
Yeah, I would just like to thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to be invited to and contribute to this important activity, and I very much look forward to seeing the suggestions that will come in. I think this is a very interesting topic, and so exciting. Thank you.
And thank you, Niklas, for taking the role solely. We got this message this morning that Cecilia was ill and couldn't make it today. So that's why we have only one of the professors here. And thank you, and bring our greetings to her. Yep. So to all of you, you go into the OMEP website, you find the ESD award page, and you find the call and the forms to do the applications. And the applications should be something that you do with children, and with the idea of this is towards sustainability, this is towards transformative change, and this is what we have done in our setting, in our preschool. And as a student, maybe you do an exam paper, or you do something within a practicum course, and you can tell about the idea. How did you come up with the idea? How did you go through with it? And in what way can you see that this has been contributing to transformative change towards sustainability? And the date is April 15, And it's not a very long application. If you used to do research applications, that's not the same thing at all. We even say that you mustn't write more than this. So we give you a sort of word count that is not very hard, but sometimes it's hard to write shortly. But please come up with applications, and we usually find one good project in each region of the world. And then we give 1 or 2 to students in addition. Yes, last chance to have something to say. Someone who wants to say something. I really appreciate so many people from Japan here today. I know that you have started working on sustainability and that you work with the OMEP ESD scale, and that's really nice. And one of my research colleagues, Professor Shiraishi, she and I are promoting twinning experiences between preschools in Japan and in the Stockholm area right now. And that could also be linked towards sustainability, because these preschools are into sustainable preschool projects. So then I thank you all for coming. I invite you to spread the link. This is recorded, and the film is on the YouTube channel. So you can, even though people couldn't be here today at this time, they can take part of our discussion through the YouTube channel. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sending in applications. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.